Then you're turning in your two projects that you just finished up. And that was the fish and the insect project. So if you have that complete, just go ahead and get that turned in and stress test. If you've already done that, that's fine. If you're still working on it, that's still fine too. Are you new? Okay, we'll talk about it. Today we're going to start with value. So we're going to start learning about what value is. In the picture, does anybody have any idea? Just not your head. You don't have to tell me, but just not. No. Okay. So value is referring to how light or dark a given color or hue that it can be, right? So look at this in a couple different ways. One is that color, if you're looking at just color, I'm going to turn this a little bit more. Your lightest value in all colors besides black and white, okay, is yellow on the lightest color. And then the darkest value would be purple or violet, the darkest violet. So that's what you're just looking at value in color. But you can also look at value as one color. Let's say you're going to have a painting with just a bunch of reds, right? Well, you can have a whole range of very, very, very light red, all the way to very, very, very dark red, right? All the ones in between, right? So that is your value of red. All your values in red. So value also works with black and white. I'm not including that right now because I wanted to explain it to you a little bit. So the color value is related to the amount of light that color reflects, right? Not all colors or hues have the same values. And like I said, yellow would be the lightest, and violet would be the darkest, right? Blacks and whites and grays are neutral colors. That's why I didn't include it, because it's a neutral color. When white light shines on a white object, the object reflects all the color waves and does not absorb any. As a result, you see the color of all the light, which is white, right? But when you have a black object, those black objects absorb all the color waves and it reflects no light. So basically, black is the absence of light, right? Gray is an impure white and reflects an equal part of each color wave. The more that the white gray reflects, the lighter it looks, and the more that it absorbs, the darker it looks. Does that make sense based on what I just said? Okay. So a light value and a hue is called a tint. This is where some people get it mixed up in the art world. They often confuse shade, right? But when we're talking about the light colors, we're actually talking about tint. And when we're talking about the darker ones, we're talking about shade. So there is a difference. So when you go onto Google Classroom and you click on that classroom tab, you'll see everything I just told you. Plus there's a diagram of different colors, shades, and tints. So then you just kind of have an idea what that is, right? And then we have our vocabulary here. I'm going to go over that real quick. We already did values. Now we're going to talk about light source or center light. And this light source or center light is going to be basically referring to this part of the light. So if you have your light here, then it's shining down on this object, right? It's shining down on the sphere. You will have a very, very small part of it where the light is more concentrated, and that is called your highlight. But where the light is flooding on the majority of the object, that is called your center light. Okay? So that's where that's going to be. That's where the light is immediately affecting that object. It's other than the highlight. Okay? Because that's different. So the highlight is the lightest value you draw. That's what that would be. This would be, if I was doing this in white chalk, I would have done this a little different. It's kind of hard to see in chalk. But this would be very, 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 very white. You know? Like if you're drawing an eye, you ever notice how they have those white dots in it? To make the highlight in the eye. But on the other side, You also have all those really, really dark lines in the eye. That's how we do it. This is highlights and shades, or tints and shades, however you want to look at it. Foreshadow is the area as the form starts to curve away from the light source. So in this example of the sphere, the object is starting to curve away from the light source right in this area. And that's where you get this darker highlight, or this darker shadow. You see how it's darker there? And when you look at the example in Google Classroom, you'll see that. You'll see that there's a darker shadow right there. In my mind, it's easy to think this. You would think that because the light's here, your light's going to be here, your shadow's going to be here, right? All of this. But that's not true. What's true is that it starts to get dark, pretty dark, where it starts to curve away from the light. Now, the reason why that's not true is because what we do with it called a reflected light. This occurs in some situations where the light is reflected off of the surface, off the other surface. So the light's over here, it's shining down the object, you got the center light here. That light's also shining here, right? And over here, right? And on this surface, it reflects back up onto this surface. So right through here, that's called your reflected light. It's reflecting off of this surface back onto the object. Okay? And that is why, in some situations, not all situations, this isn't completely dark down here. That's why you got this dark rim right here. Okay? And we also have middle tones. So the middle tones is kind of obvious. You got your highlights and you got your really dark tones. So right in the middle, you're going to have some middle tones that helps kind of just smooth that into each other. They kind of form right into each other, the light, middle, and then the dark. So you see how that works out. If you have the light here, you have the light, and then your middle tones, and then your dark tones. And then you have half shadows. That shadow, shadow that is cast by the object onto the surface. So you got your object here, the light's here, and down here you're going to get your cast shadow. So that's basically what we all know and love as shadows. We've played with shadows many times, right? Okay. And then we also have a little bit harder to say, it's called an occlusion shadow, or occlusion shadow. This is the area of the bottom of the object that has no light. It's the darkest part of the drawing. And that is where the object meets the surface. And you see how I tried to make it as dark as I could. That is called your occlusion shadow. Okay, so you don't have to remember all these words. I just want you to be familiar with them when we talk about them in class. I want you to know that shadows and values, it's actually kind of complicated, isn't it? You wouldn't think. You think you got light and you got dark, right? You got highlights and you got shadows. That's not it. There's so much more. And this is what will start to add more realistic, three-dimensional effects in your drawings if you really start to get this value of the shadow or the highlighting of where those things are going. You also have to consider the source. Where's that light coming from? In this picture, your source is up here, right? But if the source was down here, then this brightest light would all be down here, right? And the shadow, I don't know, would be somewhere off on the wall somewhere, right? In the background, instead of being on this surface. If you actually just set a light underneath it. So, and if it was in the center, this shadow would actually move, and it would be smaller. And so, yeah, and then if it was over here, you have the opposite effect. So you also have to consider where that source of light is when you're drawing a picture. So keep that in mind. That's it for the vocabulary words. Now, how do you create a shadow? There's a lot of different techniques in art to create shadows. And some of them you're probably pretty familiar with. And this one's just hatching. And the more lines that you use, the darker that shadow will be. And less lines, the lighter that shadow will be. And you can go further apart. That helps. Then you have your cross hatching. So it's the same thing as hatching, except for you're crossing them. And then you have tone, and this is where, in the chalk example, this I can do. I have this dark, and then I did some lighter ones, and even lighter lines, but I didn't touch them, just left them that way. So that's your tone, and you can do it with stippling as well. So if you made a bunch of dots, the more concentrated the dots are, that's the darkest part of the shadow, and then you get less, and even less. So you're going into more mid-tones here, highlights, right? And then you can also do it with smudging. So you make a dark line, and you use your finger or paper or all for something to smudge. And the further away you get from the darkest part, you can stop making lines with whatever you're using. You just smear it out, you know, and that'll give you some of your lighter shades. There's one more example on Google Classwork, but I can't actually draw that with chalk. So don't worry about that. But just make sure you look at it to know it, just so you know what it is. So for your next project, you're going to find either online or in a magazine or newspaper. You're kind of looking for something, you know, almost the size of a piece of art paper that I'm going to give to you. A face, and it can be anybody's face. It can be your face, somebody in your family, or it can be, I don't know, somebody from Hollywood that you really like. It could be even a superhero, in that, but it can be a cartoon. We're looking for something a little bit more realistic, okay? And you're gonna cut out that picture or print out that picture from the computer and cut it in half, right? And on half of the paper, you're gonna glue that face that you cut out, okay? On the other half of the picture, you're gonna draw the rest of the face. I know it sounds hard, but it's not that bad. You're gonna have the example on one side, so you can always look at the other side and try to mimic what you see. And the point of this, it doesn't matter if you choose a black and white or a colored photo, as long as you can see the different values, the different highlights, and more shades. So like any picture of a person, I'm real good at proportions here. You're going to have, mouth and nose. Okay, but usually the person's cheek kind of dips in. You're going to have some shadows there, but on the top of the cheek where the bone is, that's where you're going to have those highlights. You're going to have to see some of where the light, well, depending on where the light's coming from. Let's say it's coming from here. You're going to have a lot of highlighting in this cheek on the top of the bone, but right underneath that bone, you're going to have some shadows, right? And then even in the forehead, so the light's coming from here, you're probably going to have a bunch of highlights through here. But you're still where it's rounding, like right here, what we talked about, the form shadow. Where that forehead is kind of rounded, you're going to have some shadows in through there, right? You're also going to have shadows in the eye where it dips in, right? So those are the kinds of things that I want you to look at whenever you see the picture. If you can see that in color, awesome. If you can't, black and white does work better. So when you print out your picture, just print it out black and white. I think that helps. And that way you can see all those highlights and those different middle tones and the dark shadows. Does everybody understand what I'm asking for this project? Okay. So if you don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and get some paper. And that is over here. I know that you might not be able to start drawing this today. I want you to have a paper. And you can start researching that today too. And I'm going to go ahead and shut off this broadcast.